I'm always impressed when people have dogs that are well trained. You know, the ones who will attentively follow right at their heel, and they won't strain at the leash or dart off to the side. And yet that doesn't mean that dog is ready to go off leash, right? Because all it takes is a squirrel running by. Or even worse, roadkill out in the middle of the road. And you know that dog might go running off. Right? They need that external restraint in case that impulse takes over and overpowers their training. Well, we have impulsive hearts too. Now, one of the blessings of salvation is that the Holy Spirit empowers us to resist those sinful impulses. But we can't let our guard down because those impulses are still there. And, I think Paul describes that struggle in Romans 7:21 through 23. Some people would interpret it differently, but he says this. He goes, "So I find it to be a law that when I want to do right, evil lies close at hand. For I delight in the law of God in my inner being, but I see in my members another law waging war against the law of my mind and making me captive to the law of sin that dwells in my members." You identify with that? And I think that's the struggle we face. And so we need to harness our impulsive hearts. Even when we're focused on serving God, we might still encounter a temptation that draws the worst out of us. And I think that's what happens to Paul as he arrives in Athens. Acts 17, verse 16 says, "Now while Paul was waiting for them at Athens," for Silas and Timothy, "his spirit was provoked within him as he saw that the city was full of idols." So as he made his way up from the harbor into the city, he probably passed through the ancient agora. It had been the city's commercial center in the past, but by Paul's time, it was probably taken over by government buildings, by temples to various Greek gods. All the ones you read about in mythology, Zeus and Aphrodite, Ares and Hephaestus. And high above, up on the Acropolis, stands the Parthenon, the grand temple devoted to the city's patron goddess, the goddess of wisdom, Athena. Now, you might think, well, isn't anger a righteous response when you see the worship of idols? I mean, the false religion that permeated Athens was an abomination, an offense to the glory of the one true God. And you think prior to his conversion, what might Paul, or Saul of Tarsus as he was known, what might he have done? Maybe something rash. I mean, he might have lashed out physically. He might have gone around crying out that people were going to hell. But instead of that, we'll see here in verse 17 in a moment that he harnesses those impulses and he focuses on reasoning with people. It's the same word that we found last week in Thessalonica. He reasoned. Now, interestingly, the only other New Testament use of the word translated provoked here is from Paul himself. It's in 1 Corinthians 13:5. It's that great love passage. And he says, love is not provoked. And so that's a helpful insight. It's Christ-like love that enabled him to resist the provocation of Athenian idolatry, because he looked beyond their offensive behavior to see that these were people held captive by their sin who needed to be saved. See, we need to have that same loving, theologically sound outlook. But to do that, we have to harness our impulsive hearts.